This is Anthony Woodcock with GodRules.net. I wanted to do a video on a topic that I discuss here and there regarding aianos and aion. Okay, these are two Greek terms, and there's a lot of controversy between the meanings of these terms. And I wanted to kind of sort of put the nail in the coffin on the whole topic, because I think some people are not honest about the whole topic, especially those who've been indoctrinated into the meaning of these words. See, I'm all about logic and understanding things and figuring things out, puzzles in the Bible. And my background is engineering, and I did quite well in math and all that kind of stuff in college. So I have a gift for figuring things out. And with the whole topic of aion and aianos, what you learn is this. Okay, what they'll argue, there's two sides. Okay, there's scholars on both sides. You have guys like William Barclay on the side that I'm on, which think that aianos basically it means age or fullness of age. It's like a descriptive adjective. Okay, so the whole question is, what does aianos mean, not what does aion mean? Because aion means world age, and that's pretty much everybody agrees on that. That's why it says, like, there's a verse where Jesus says, the children of this world or age marry and are given in marriage. Now, it doesn't make much sense to say eternity there, okay, because usually, and maybe some of you don't have no clue what I'm talking about. What we're talking about here is the topic of eternal torment or everlasting punishment, okay? This topic, a lot of people will tell you, oh, it has to mean eternal torment. It has to mean everlasting punishment. Okay, what opened my eyes originally was reading the early fathers. I started to notice a pattern that they had basically not the same viewpoints as you see today in society. Matter of fact, the Christians, most Christians today, most Protestant Christians today, have a viewpoint that would more so agree with Gnostics of the early church, not Christians. Now, the Catholic Church kind of has a viewpoint that's like the early church, but I would say it's kind of like a perverted version. I would say the Orthodox probably has the more accurate version that would sort of relate to the early church, based on what I've read in the early church. Okay, getting that aside, that was just a starter, okay? Nobody really disagrees on what aion means. They think it means age, okay? Now, some still think it means eternal even. I mean, they try to slant it to mean eternal as well, but for the most part, everybody agrees on what aion means. The whole question is, and that's a noun. Aion is a noun. Aianos is an adjective, okay? So, eternal torment. Eternal being the adjective describing torment, right? So, let me show you what's going on here. Okay, I like to bring things down to their root, to the bare bones, and start off with what we really know. Scientifically, what do we know about this term? Well, if you get a scholar and you just put them in a corner and you just drill them with questions and just really ask them, what does this word really mean? Okay, it comes down to this. It means fullness of an age. So aianos, the adjective describing collasis or torment or punishment or whatever, we're going to get into that word too, because that one's actually twisted as well. If you get them to admit the truth, theology aside, your interpretation aside, putting everything aside, just looking at what it exactly says, what does it really say? What does the ancient Greek really say? Fullness of an age. Okay, fullness of an age of discipline. Okay, so then the question comes, and they don't like to admit this, because then that means the rest of it's theology, which is what it is. It is theology. See, they think they have some very simple assumptions that they believe are just have to be true. They just have to be true. They have to be true. And the reason why they believe they have to be true is because they have errors in their theology in the first place. Okay, let me just show you what they do. Okay, aeon means age or world. Aeonos means fullness of an age of punishment, as it's usually used to describe punishment. Okay, aeonos, classis aeonos. Okay, as in Matthew 25:46. So it means fullness of an age. Now, then they argue, well, heaven is also described by aeonos as a fullness of an age, and we all know heaven is eternal. Okay. So, and then you're like, well, that you can't really argue against that, right? That sounds pretty accurate. And then they go and say, well, if heaven is eternal, hell has to be eternal. This is their argument. This is their assumptions. This is their argument. Okay? Let me show you a few things. First, they don't read the early fathers. And the early fathers say there are two ages in front of us. Actually, there's three. You got this age, which is this world, which Jesus refers to the children of this world or age marry and are given in marriage, when he was responding to the Sadducees, who gave him sort of an impossible scenario of a woman marrying 7 husbands and one of them dying, which is actually a story from one of the apocryphal books. Okay, I think it's Tobit or something. Okay, and she ends up, every one of them that marries her dies. Some demon kills her. Okay, because he's not a good person. Okay, but in the end, I think it was a demon that killed him. I read the book once, and brain's getting a little foggy here. In the end, she married a righteous guy. They didn't have sex for a night or something, and they prayed. And then the next night they had sex, and then he didn't die, so he was the 7th husband, right? At any rate, that's getting off track. The point is that he used aeonos to mean this age. The next age, all the early fathers called the next age the intermediate state, which is the state where you're dead, awaiting the judgment seat of Christ. And then the final state, or the last age, I think is probably a correct way to put it, or maybe it's not, I'm not exactly sure, but you got this age, you got the intermediate state, and then you got the after the judgment seat. Let's just say it that way. So you got this age, this world, physical world, the place of the dead, Sheol, Hades, which is the next state, the intermediate state, which all the early fathers agree on. And then you got the next stage after that, after the judgment seat of Christ, where you have the lake of fire and you got final heaven. Okay, so you see how there's maybe an error in their argument already? They said heaven is eternal, right? You see what I'm getting at? So, yeah, the final heaven might be eternal, but what about the intermediate state before the judgment seat of Christ? Because after the judgment seat of Christ, there's a new heaven, a new earth, a new Jerusalem. So maybe the heaven that's in the intermediate state is replaced just like the new earth is replaced. It says new heaven, new earth, new Jerusalem. So maybe that heaven isn't eternal, is not eternal. You see what I'm getting at? So in other words, we have an assumption right there. It might be proven wrong right there. Now, you might not even have heard of the intermediate state, probably because you listen to 21st century pastors who don't talk about the early fathers. They never read them. They never read Justin the Martyr, Tertullian, Irenaeus, etc., etc. They don't read these guys. This was my wake-up call. Was the first time I read the early fathers, and I was shocked at their viewpoints on the afterlife. That was one of the main ones that was very different. Because I have a book that's topical, and it just has quotes from the 100 AD to 300 AD, like 60 different early fathers. And I just kind of went through the book to see what was different today from what they thought back then. And one of the main ones that was very different was the afterlife. Okay. So that really piqued my interest. And since I want to have the truth, and I want to believe the truth, and I want to know the truth, I studied it in great depth. So here we go. We already have one assumption that might be wrong. Aeonos is a descriptive, meaning fullness of an age, of punishment, for instance, or of heaven. And I already showed you that the heaven that is there right now might be temporary, because it says there's a new heaven, new earth, new Jerusalem. So is heaven eternal? Well, that's a good question, and I just gave you a reason to think maybe it isn't. The final heaven is eternal. Now from there, they also argue that hell has to be eternal. If heaven is eternal, hell has to be eternal. Well, see, first, I showed you that their paradigm in the first place is wrong, that they think that immediately after you die, you go to final heaven or final hell or whatever. but I've already shown that to be an error. Okay, you see what I'm getting at? I've already questioned their paradigm in the first place where they make all their assumptions. Okay, now, from there, what they do is they say, okay, oh, just a sec here, let me think. Then they argue that if heaven is eternal, hell has to be eternal, right? And these are all their assumptions. They won't tell you these assumptions. See, this is what we're talking about. When you make an assumption, you make an ass out of you and me. Don't you? You make an ass out of you and me. See, I'm a scientist. I have a scientist background. I'm an engineer. I like to make sure I have the truth. I like to start with the simplest pieces and work from there. I don't care about your assumptions. If your assumptions are wrong, they have to be right. My assumptions are so simple. Seriously? I've seen a lot of this in scholarly evolutionists, scholarly, pastors, all these PhDs. They all have these assumptions. And guess what? Your assumptions are wrong. You assume too much. This is your problem. You assume too much. You think you know too much. You think you know a lot. It makes you think it makes your head swell. You're proud. You think you know everything. Next thing you know, someone like me comes along and shows you how you're wrong. Okay, look, Plato has been said to have probably invented the term aion and aionos. Okay, when he uses the term, he indicates that it only means eternal in the case of God himself or something maybe that extends in perfection from God. Okay, so if only God is truly eternal and only something that he can make would be potentially eternal, you can't assume the word means eternal. Okay, and as I've said in many videos, Jonah was in the belly of a whale for aionos. Okay, so, and he was in the belly of the whale for 3 days, so obviously it doesn't have to mean eternal. Do you see where I'm going with this now? It means fullness of an age. Now, the secular meaning of aion and aionos is age, lifespan, age. So let's stop lying to ourselves. Let's stop putting our theological spin on the Bible. Let's stop making it say what we want it to say. All you Calvinists, because you guys are the ones that really needed to say this. Okay? All you Protestants, all you guys from the Western side of the church, Catholics and Protestants. I'm a Protestant, by the way, but I just like to study the truth and figure it out. Okay, the East doesn't have this problem. They don't assume things like this. They're very bare bones, which is what I like about the Orthodox Church. They have some very simple orthodoxy. They don't try to add or take away from it. They don't try to pretend like they know everything. They have 7 ecumenical councils. They don't go like the Catholics and have 34 more. Or like the Protestants, dividing over every whim and doctrine out there. And, oh, the carpet's red. I don't like the red carpet. I'm going to go make another church. You see what I mean? I mean, this is how retarded the Protestant church is. The Holiness Church within the Protestant church is like the smallest piece of the Protestant church. And they have like 700 sections, divisions within their own church. And where do these divisions come from among you? Come they not from the lusts that war in your members? James 4. Galatians 5:19. What is one of the works of the flesh? Division, seditions. So you're telling me you're not working from the flesh, people? You are working from the flesh. Okay, so the point is that aion means fullness of an age. Well, what is the length of an age? Well, is that for you to define? Is it for you to define the length of an age? Or also, like I said, there's been usages of the term which mean an intense period. Like in the case of Jonah, in the belly of a whale for 3 days. So hell could actually just be an intense period where you're in hell for a day, separated from God, experiencing what it feels like not to have love, not to have God's joy, not to have the goodness of God, and be of yourself fully engulfed in fear, fully engulfed in hate. It could drive you insane in 1 day's time. That might be enough to make you want to change and repent. And what does it say? Christ's mercy endures forever. God's mercy endures forever. So if God's mercy endures forever, why wouldn't it endure in hell? See, that's another thing. Forever and ever. What is forever and ever? Aeon and aeon. Okay, so aeonos. What do we have here? We have an age and an age. Not forever and forever. Does that even make sense? It's not even logical. Forever and forever. Can you have 2 forevers? You can't have 2 forevers. You can have 2 fullnesses of an age, can't you? So here we have something that contradicts the truth. But we're told it, and every church tells you this stuff. Almost every church. Not all, but... Okay, let me show you something here. It's a little bit different version of this video. I'm going to show you some stuff. Okay, first I wanted to mention about the Plato thing I was talking about earlier. See, Plato said that he may have invented the term aeon. That's what a lot of scholars believe. And he said that only God is essentially eternal, or something that extends in perfection from God. Everything else is not eternal. So aeon in general secular literature is considered to be either an intense period or an age. For the most part, it means an age. Okay? But see, what I'm going to show you here, because like I said, I was talking about if you put a scholar in a corner, whatever the scholar is, and ask him, what does aeonos mean? This adjective, what does it mean? Why can't you guys ever agree? Because they have assumptions. But if you nail him in a corner, he's going to tell you it means fullness of an age, or a fullness of a period of time. See, in the case of Jonah in the belly of the whale, in the Greek Septuagint, we have it here. You see this here? It's aeonos. The one they tell you has to mean eternal. Okay, now actually, I want to show you something. This is actually Jonah verse 6, or Jonah 2 verse 6. I created this website, but I accidentally got them misaligned because the Septuagint doesn't align with your standard numbering that you see in a lot of Protestant Bibles, so it gets confusing. Sometimes it's a verse off, sometimes it's 2 verses off, sometimes it's a chapter and 2 verses off. So it was a lot of fun for me trying to get them all to correlate, and I happen to be a verse off. This is actually Jonah 2 verse 6, so it doesn't actually relate to what's being said here. Let me show you what 2 verse 6 is. I went down to the bottoms of the mountains. Here, I'll just go to it. And that's the wrong Greek. I went down to the lowest part of the mountains. The bars of the earth have shut me up forever. Here's where it is, forever. But like I said, I had the Greek misaligned, and the Greek is over here, aeonos. And you can see this because, look, let me show you. Matthew 25:46, these shall go into everlasting punishment. Aeonos, kolassis aeonos, right? So here you have it right here. Kolassis aeonos. You see that? See how it's written? Aeonos. See that right there? Watch. See that? It relates. Okay? Now if I go over to aeon, okay, the devil who deceived them was thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet are also. They will be tormented day and night forever and ever. And this is what I was talking about, forever and ever, which is aeon. And let me show you that right here. Okay, let me get the pop up here. It's not going to pop up in the right place. Aeon, right? And actually, let me confirm it over here on this other one. Well, let me leave this open, and then you'll see it. Okay, you see that? Here, this is aeonos, right? And let me do this. You'll see it change. Aeonos, see? Okay, so you get the point. You see I'm not lying to you. You can see in Jonah, it's clearly aeonos. I'm not lying to you, am I? See, I had an argument or debate with a guy here on YouTube. He's like, I can't find aeonos in the Greek Septuagint in Jonah 2:6. Where is it? You're just making stuff up. Well, here it is. And that's the reason why I made this video, because there's so much confusion out there, and I just wanted to make the truth known. I want people to see the truth. There's aeonos being used to describe Jonah in the belly of the whale for 3 days. 3 days. Aeonos. Matthew, here we go. Matthew 25:46. Aeonos. Okay? Supposedly means eat forever. Talking about hell, right? And I've already shown you a lot of these assumptions are incorrect. For one, heaven in the intermediate state is not eternal. It's being replaced by new heaven, new earth, new Jerusalem. Earth is not eternal. Jerusalem is not eternal. It's being replaced by new Jerusalem. Heaven's being replaced by new heaven. Earth is being replaced by new earth. All this theology, All this understanding has been lost around the 4th century, which is where all the errors come in. The anti-sex errors, hell being eternal torment, all the stuff comes in around that time. Book of Enoch being lost. All these things are lost. Why? Because of Rome. Rome didn't truly become Christian. It paganized Christianity. Okay. Now, so what is my point here? So you kind of see where I'm going now. It doesn't have to mean everlasting punishment. It can mean, like I said, if you get a scholar in a corner, get him to really tell you what it means fullness of an age. I just read it in one of these books. I think it was this book. No, which one was it? Okay, here we go. Francis Chan. You see that guy? Francis Chan. He's writing this book against Love Wins. His book is called Erasing Hell. He thinks Rob Bell erased hell, right? And he has like this scholar on board who helped him write this book. And the scholar, when it came down to it, when he got nailed in the corner, admitted that it means fullness of an age. But like I said, in the case of Jonah here, which is scripture, this is scripture here, Septuagint, scripture, written in 270 BC from Ptolemy, Egypt. Okay, the 70 elders in Alexandria wrote this. Okay, or actually translated this. And the legend goes that when they translated it, they all did it separately, all 70 men. And they all came up with the exact same text. When all 70 men, completely separate from each other, translated it, and they brought them all together, according to the legend, all of them agreed perfectly. That's how they knew it was inspired. Okay? So, this guy named Preston Sprinkle, supposed to be a scholar of some sort, Greek scholar, he says it means fullness of an age. And I show you here that Jonah, actually I'm sorry, right here, Aianos, that they tell you means everlasting, which if you get a scholar in the corner will tell you means fullness of an age. And if you look at Jonah 2:6, because I have these things misaligned, I went down to the bottoms of the mountains, the earth where her bars was about me forever. Yet, I'll show you it. Yeah, right there, see forever. Yet thou hast brought up life from corruption. Oh my God, oh Lord my God. So, he was in forever, and it's Aianos, right? But how long was he in Jonah? How long was Jonah in the belly of the whale? 3 days. So in other words, fullness of a period. So it doesn't necessarily have to mean even age. In the case of Jonah, it meant a period, an intense period of 3 days. That was the fullness of an intense period of 3 days in the belly of a whale that he described as forever. So you might say that's a symbolic use or whatever, you know what I mean? Non-literal. But how do you know this isn't literal? How do you know that hell isn't an intense period of 3 days? How do you know? You don't know. See what I'm getting at? You're assuming. You are assuming you're making an ass out of you and me. That's ASSUME. For all you are slow to figure things out. Okay. At any rate, see where I'm going now? Now here's another thing. Let me show you another thing. Forever and ever. Aeon, right? I showed you this a minute ago. Let me pop it up again. Aeon, right? Which, like I said, most scholars will tell you it means age or world, right? Because that's where it's used most of the time in the Bible. But they do use it as forever even there. They use this term as forever also. But see, if you ask a secular historian about this term, a secular person who knows about ancient Greek, what is he going to tell you? It means age, it means lifespan. He's not going to tell you it means forever. He's not going to say that. The only one that's going to say that is your religious scholar. Why? Because of his theology. Because of his theology. Because it means fullness of an age, and he assumes fullness of age means eternal because heaven has to be eternal. This is the whole reasoning. Now, let's see here. Let me show you the illogical nature of this viewpoint on this verse here. What do we have here? And the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are, and shall be tormented day and night forever and ever. Have you ever thought of what forever and ever is? Aianos and Aianos. Aianos and Aianos. Okay, does that make any sense? So, like I said, let's take their assumptions into consideration here. Let's say it does mean eternity. For eternity and another eternity. Does that make any sense to you? It's illogical. So obviously, it doesn't mean that. You see how it's illogical? So the very terms forever and ever is illogical in the first place. You see what I'm talking about here? Why do you people have to assume things and then make it scripture? You wrote a Bible here. You made a Bible, the King James Bible. You made the World English Bible. Your translation contradicts logic. It contradicts logic. Forever and ever is not even logical. Eternity and eternity is not even feasible. You can't have two eternities in a row. It's impossible. Logically impossible. You see why, in other words, it can't mean forever. So your assumption about fullness of an age meaning forever is proven incorrect by Revelation 20:10. Revelation 20:10 proves that hell is not forever. Do you understand logic now? We're using logic here. If you're correct and hell is eternal, as you state, then it would be, in this verse, eternity and another eternity. Because that's an impossibility and is illogical, we must deduce that it's not eternal. And because of that, it has to be an age and an age. Or as in the case of Jonah, an intense period and an intense period. We don't know how long this period is. Okay? Do you see how I just proved 100% without a shadow of a doubt, completely and utterly, that I am correct, that hell is not eternal? I just proved it with one Bible verse. Okay? Now, there was something else I was going to get to too. Oh yeah, colossus. Okay, colossus. This is the word that they translate as torment or punishment here. Okay? Colossus right here. Okay, let me pull this up. See, and the Strong's Concordance has changed over time. Okay, the old Strong's said different stuff than the new Strong's does. They keep adding more and more theology to each Strong's Concordance they make. The Protestants think they have truth by the... Well, I shouldn't probably say that, but they think they have the truth figured out. Okay, but I'm showing you how you can question all of what they say. Penal infliction, punishment, torment. Okay, torment is the wrong word. That is the wrong word for... I'll just give you the simple argument as to why it's wrong. William Barclay, who is a Greek scholar, gives this argument, and he's correct. There's only two Greek words for punishment. Okay, the term colossus is the one that benefits the person receiving the punishment. Okay, torment, if I say I'm going to torment you, does that sound like I'm benefiting you? Are you benefiting in some way when I torment you? Or does it sound more like I'm getting jollies off punishing you? If I say I'm tormenting you, you're probably going to think I'm getting some pleasure off punishing you, right? Well, that's the other Greek term that's not in the text. So why did they use the word torment? Theology. Because the Roman Church, and because the Protestants accept a lot of what the Roman Church says, even though they claim that they're the protesters, the Protestants, the protesters against the Catholic Church, they still come out of the Catholic Church, the daughter of the Catholic Church. Okay? It's not torture. It's not devils tormenting people. The devil came up with that viewpoint. The devil came up with eternal torment and devils torturing people in hell. The devil came up with that. How do I know? Because he wants God to look like a mockery. He wants God to look like a psychotic dictator. Of course he's going to come up with some stupid thing like that. If God is love and he wants to torment you, how do you think atheism has such a power with some people? It's because of this garbage. So in other words, it's a discipline that benefits somebody. We know it's a fullness of a period of time, which might be an age. We don't know how long it is. In the case of Jonah, it was 3 days, an intense period of time. So you see how I've proven all this stuff here? You see where I'm going with this? There is no argument. Okay, I'm sick and tired of this, man. I was arguing with some guys here on YouTube. They're like arguing like they have a legitimate position. Look, you have assumptions. I just proved your assumptions incorrect. I'm correct, you're wrong. That's just the end of it. Right there, I just proven it. Okay? I find it really ridiculous that I have to even make this video. The fact that we have such a church that's so screwed up. It's so screwed up, it's ridiculous. Okay?